Yeah, there's never really been that many that I've been completely devastated with. I feel like I've never really had that much pressure on myself. Like it's always just been the adventure of getting there and seeing what happened, and just never doing it professionally. There's no one that's like saying, "Oh, we need you to do this result." Like this is your expectations. I haven't had that many like perfect races, which I think has actually been in my favor. Like not being able to fully show what I can do on this American scene probably made it possible for me to do what I did at Unbound. Like, had I had a great race and had a podium before, I might not have been allowed to get away so easily at Unbound. So, looking back, I think it's almost a blessing that I've had little things go wrong in all my races here so far, because it allowed me to pull off what I did at the biggest race in the world on the gravel.
This is Andrew Vance, and you're listening to Choose the Hard Way, the podcast about how hard things build stronger people who have more fun. We're here to talk bikes, Zen, and life today with Cameron Jones. If you don't know who Cameron Jones is, do you even know what gravel is? I'm not sure you do. Cameron Jones won the 2025 edition of Unbound Gravel, the most competitive edition ever of the most prestigious gravel race on planet Earth and possibly in the solar system. 3 months earlier, Cameron showed up in America. He walked into a used car dealership in the Bay Area and walked off the lot with the used Honda Odyssey to begin his own odyssey of greatness. And he did it all with a dream to make this his best season ever. I would say mission accomplished, Cameron. Working with his mom and dad, who traveled from New Zealand to be his pit crew at Unbound, Cameron beat former world champions, riders who've raced the Tour de France, and the best gravel pros in the world. And boy, are they something to win Unbound. I've heard all of the Unbound breakdown interviews that Cameron has done since winning the race. I even did one myself with Spencer Martin over on Beyond the Peloton, the cycling podcast we co-host. And I wanted to get to know more about Cameron and what makes this guy who he is. That's what we cover in this interview. It's different than others that I've heard, and I'm excited to share it with you today. Being able to switch on and be laser focused when it's go time, while also being able to shut it down, relax, and roll with whatever pops up in life and training and competition the rest of the time, is truly one of the biggest differentiators between world-class performers and everyday people. It's a skill that you can cultivate and learn, and it's something that some people like Cameron seem to innately have and do a fantastic job of developing further in the course of their life. Cameron has this ability, and he's got an engine that I believe will take him to the world tour and to races like Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, if he wants to go there. As a bigger cyclist myself, I'm 6'2" and 190-ish, maybe a few more pounds from time to time. Cameron's size is an inspiration to me. He's 6 feet tall and about 195 pounds himself. At least he was on race day at Unbound. So I have no more excuses for why I got second twice in the Unbound 100 and did not win. And I don't have an excuse for my group rides here in Hope, Maine. All I have is the desire to keep pedaling. But these are not the most interesting parts of Cameron's story. He has done stints in the forestry industry. Very interesting discussion about pine trees and what's going on in my yard here in Hope, Maine in this episode. And in his teens back in New Zealand, Cameron was an elite multi-sport athlete who knocked the arm warmers off the best athletes in New Zealand in the coast to coast. This is a race you may not heard of yet, but you will be hearing more about it in the future, I guarantee. And it's always big news in New Zealand. It's a race that combines running, cycling, and kayaking to travel across New Zealand. And as a teenager, Cameron won that race. Cameron, as you may have gathered, is from a tight-knit family. And I wanted to know more about who he is, how he came from seemingly out of nowhere. I had not heard a lot about him prior to the 2025 season to pull off a win that people will be talking about for years to come. I enjoyed getting to know Cameron, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about what he shares in this episode. As always, you can DM me at Hardway Pod on Instagram and let me know what you think. The number one way to support Choose the Hard Way, the podcast, is to become a paid subscriber to the Choose the Hard Way Substack, which you can find at alwaysthehardway.substack.com. As always, find that link in the show notes. My Substack is where I share my reflections on the interviews that I do here on the Choose the Hard Way podcast. And I write about engaged mindfulness, bikes, life, Maine, and a lot of other topics that I think you'd be interested in. For senior executives, professional athletes like Cameron, and political leaders, podcasts aren't optional anymore. They're a mission critical communications channel. At One Real Voice, my boutique consultancy, I coach leaders one-on-one to help them thrive as storytellers and stand out in the long-form podcast conversations where real influence is built. If you have a podcast or if you're thinking about starting one, I also provide strategic guidance to help you create a roadmap that works today and delivers continual value over time. Set yourself up to win from the beginning and keep on winning with every episode. When you're ready to be great, DM me at Hardway Pod or email hello@onerealvoice.com. I just work with a handful of clients at a time, and you might be one of them. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe and do humanity a favor. Hit 5 stars wherever you listen. I'm excited to have Lauf on board as my bike sponsor because they make the Sigla, the most innovative and coolest gravel bike in the world. It has clearance for massive mountain bike tires. Yes, I am running 2.2 Continental Race Kings on mine right now, only because I could not get my hands on a pair of Schwalbe Thunderbirds 2.1s because Dylan Johnson has been talking about them. Therefore, they are sold out until the end of the gravel season. Schwalbe, if you're listening, I am as well. You can DM me at Hardway Pod. Lauf also makes the Utald. It's their road bike. It is ripping fast. It's super comfortable, and it has made this beautiful summer here in Maine even better. I could work with any bike company, and I ride Lauf because they're awesome. Visit at Lauf Cycles on Instagram and tell them I sent you. Where are you right now?
Field, Washington. It's like half an hour north of Portland.
Right.
So yeah, I've been covering some ground recently. I've been like being on the road and hanging out with the mum and dad. Has been the easiest to get in podcasts or anything, but in one place for a couple of days now, so good chance.
Yeah, that's cool. And where have you been on the trip so far?
We went from Kansas through to North Platte, Nebraska, then to like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where I talked to you guys last time.
Right.
A couple of nights there. Checked out Yellowstone, went through to Pocatello, Idaho, and then big drive through to Portland. Then day there, and then up around the Olympic National Park in Washington. Dropped mum and dad at the ferry to go across to Vancouver Island, and then drove down sort of back to Portland yesterday.
Yeah,
so covered some ground.
Yeah, and I know you have a number of different races coming up here in the next few weeks. It seems like just based on the 1,000-word captions most people had following Unbound and all the content they made leading up to Unbound, most people who are doing what you do seem to have, I would say, like an almost obsessive approach to preparing for competition. And with what you're doing right now, how are you fitting in the training that you need to do and the preparation with being in all of these new places and kind of having some fun with your parents?
I haven't really. Like the training's like, there's been no training program. It's just go and ride if you see something cool. Like we rode around up in the North Loop of Yellowstone. So there was 120k. Perfect way to see the area because you can you ride at the side of the road, see what bears or buffalo or whatever are off the track. And then there's some cool looking mountain bike tracks around Jackson Hole. And then Yeah, rode some of the Olympic Discovery Trail a couple of days ago. Just sort of cool things along the way. It's yeah, maybe not the ideal training for the next wee bit, but I definitely needed some sort of a break after Unbound because the training leading into that was pretty intensive. Yeah, it's probably more of a mental break than anything else, not having to stress about what training you are doing, just keeping the legs ticking over.
Yeah, and I saw the Scott video that kind of showed, I think it was leading up to Sea Otter. I don't know. I've heard you talk about this, but in that video, you just walk in. I think you walk into a car dealership and you walk out with what looks like a used Honda Odyssey. Walk me through how that happened, and was that part of the plan before you showed up?
So I sort of came over here to give the scene a go last year, and even with like one or two bikes I had at the time, it was so hard to get around. Like when you're trying to fly and hitch rides with people, it's pretty tricky without your own vehicle. And then also having a big van that you can potentially sleep in if you need. Just having your own place where you can have all your stuff and travel on your own schedule. That's been a game changer this year. So yeah, I knew coming over this year that I needed a vehicle and did as much research as I could from New Zealand. So when I flew in, I knew I'd only have a few days to sort it out before to get down to Sea Otter. So yeah, it was a couple of kind of full on days worth in San Francisco car shopping. I know nothing about vehicles, so just yeah, having the playing the whole car dealer game. They're trying to sell me stuff, and then me trying to figure out if it was a lemon or not. And then having Danny following me around, videoing some of it was pretty gold in the end. Had some good experiences with some of the dealers here. One of the guys, he was like selling me a car. And he was like, "Oh, you're a mountain biker? Yeah, it's got a hitch mount on it." I know that because we're a big mountain biking family. My son is like big mountain biker and started showing me some videos, and his son's literally doing like the Red Bull Rampage lines, like canyon gaps and stuff. And so it was pretty funny to meet him. But yeah, the car's been pretty good so far. I've done like 8,000 miles on it since April. Drove like all around the races here in like the Bay Area at the start of the year, then through to Arizona, out to Virginia, and then all the way back up to the very top quarter of Washington. So it's seen a lot of the country. And yeah, still running well. Got a bit of a crack in the windscreen just from some rogue stone that got flipped up. But apart from that, it's running a dream.
People seem to spend a lot of time on something like a car purchase. Even if it's a used car purchase, it's a big decision for most people. So you land in San Francisco. How many days between walking off the plane and buying this car?
I would have been 2.5 days, maybe. Yeah,
Okay.
probably less. So yeah, it was certainly stressful because I haven't bought a car before, but my parents and friends are saying, yeah, it's like a big decision, and a lot of it can be ugly if you don't get it right. So yeah, I'd try to spend as much time as I could on it. But I didn't have, I wasn't, I would ideally would have come over earlier and spent more time on it. But with the whole visa situation to get in this Oregon Trail race that I'm doing next, well, in a few weeks, I could only, even if I flew out straight after that, I could only get here like a few days before I needed to go down to Sea Otter. So I was limited on that front as well.
Where was your head at landing, knowing I've got to go buy a car, which I've never done before, and then I'm going down to race Sea Otter? And at that point, you're not in the Lifetime Grand Prix, biggest off-road series in the United States, potentially in the world. So it's a lot on the line for you in a couple of days. Where was your head at?
Yeah, and I was also a bit nervous, like those few days buying the car, but also filming that video you were talking about, the Hunt for the Wild Card episode with Scott. So I never really done a video like that before, so I was slightly nervous about that, just doing the interviews and knowing that everything would be on camera, just trying to sort of be myself, but also make some good content for that. Yeah, it was in the end, it probably was a bit too much. Like flying in, like yeah, as well as you try and sleep, it's always hard to you always come off the plane on the back foot, especially like from New Zealand. It was 17 hours of flying, missed a couple of good nights sleep, and then yeah, it was a bit colder than I thought, and like out late one night doing some of the filming, got a bit chilly, and did end up coming down with a pretty nasty cold, which was not ideal here of Sea Otter, especially having had such good prep. I'm not sure if it affected the result in the end, but I definitely wasn't feeling the greatest at Sea Otter. Yeah, I was pretty glad to salvage the result I did out of Sea Otter and let myself set myself up well for getting into the Grand Prix come Unbound.
How did you feel on the other side of that result?
Just relieved, really. Like this whole that video with Scott and the upcoming one is all about getting into the Grand Prix. So sort of wanted it to be a happy ending for that series, and felt a bit of pressure to do so and keep myself in the hunt through Sea Otter. So while I think 12th place I got, it wasn't the result up to the dreamed of or knew I could get. It was good enough to, yeah, I was third place in that wildcard standings coming out of that. So yeah, and then just wrapped it up at Unbound by getting the win.
When did doing this type of racing become the focus of your athletic life? And like what came before? Why did you decide to focus on this?
This being like the gravel and the marathon mountain biking came about 2020 into 2022. Before this, I was focusing more on the XCO, like World Cup mountain biking scene. Had a pretty wild season in 2022. Came home and did the first ever New Zealand gravel national champs. It's like my first time riding a gravel bike, and managed to win that. Had a good time at it, and then got, I think, a podium at the marathon mountain biking national champs. And yeah, they were good results, but I just loved the long loop compared to the short loops that you do in XCO, and just, I don't know, a lot more fun and just riding blind and adventurous feeling to it. So yeah, after doing those, I decided in 2023, which was my first year in the elite age group, which is a big step up on the World Cup circuit. I thought there's no need to jump straight back in and get my head kicked in there. So I went over I went back to do a year of study, and in the mid-year break, I was able to take 6 weeks off and went over to Canada to do a stage race and a few XCO races. So I did the single track six mountain bike stage race, and yeah, again that sort of reassured me that the longer stage race kind of point to point kind of races is what I enjoy the most. And yeah, the XCO race that I did there sort of kept the confidence up that I was able to compete at that highest level on the elite category still. Um, yeah, coming back from there, I was like, be cool to give this lifetime series a go. There's so much hype about it, like the videos they put out, and they did a real good job of promoting it. And I was just curious to see how I'd fit in. So Sea Otter in 2024 was sort of my first introduction to that scene. I had no idea how I'd fit in, having not raced any of them before, and got eighth there in the opening round on the mountain bike race. So, and then yeah, the season sort of kicked off from there, and I was hooked on this North American scene. Just another country to explore as well. I'd done Europe, then did Canada. I was like, oh, I haven't checked out America yet. So I think going and seeing new places and exploring is a big part of staying in the sport. Good way to travel.
How far ahead do you think? Like in 2022, when you decided, okay, I'm going to give this a try, were you thinking about the next 6 months, the next 5 years? What did you have in mind?
Nah, I don't really think too far ahead. I know I'm planning where I'm staying and traveling pretty week by week at the moment. But when you do have your own vehicle over here, you kind of can do that. And even last year when I didn't, like, it's, I think like our attitude to traveling, the later you leave stuff, the more chance that there's going to be someone come around that's offering a lift somewhere or offering a couch or a bed, which can be kind of annoying for the people I travel with that like to be organised. But knowing you've always got a backup, leaving booking stuff late can be good because yeah, something cheap or free might come up.
What do you like about being in new places and exploring? What do you get out of it?
Doing so, especially with a mountain bike, you can like mountain bikes are perfect a way to travel. You can get into the centre of all these little towns easily. You don't have to like, look around for a park, but then you can also get up into the back roads, cover some decent ground, and get up into the mountains. So you can sort of see everything of a place with a mountain or gravel bike. Yeah, just so much out there, especially coming from New Zealand, sort of tucked away at the bottom corner of the world. Um, I think everyone's got a bit of a travel bug, and especially more so than people over here in America. I've met lots of people that have barely travelled outside the States. And I've been to more states and places in the country than they have. Yeah, just cool to see new stuff, plants, animals, and terrain.
Much has been made of your size, and for people who don't know, how tall are you and how much do you weigh?
6 foot, like, probably nearly 190 pounds, 85 kilos or something.
Have you ever felt like your size is a limiter in this sport?
Oh, I probably will halfway up Columbine at Leadville this year. I mean, yeah, growing up doing mountain biking and living with like surrounded by hills, I never really, you just going right up the hills and that's what you trade on. So it wasn't until sort of into my under 23 years and doing a bunch of like World Cups and races around the world that you sort of didn't start to notice a pattern that the flatter the race, the better I tended to do. So that's just natural. Yeah, I guess anatomically not as good at going uphill as someone smaller. But then, yeah, on the other side, when it comes to a race like Unbound, I could do, yeah, I could ride far more within myself than a lot of those guys. Just being relatively flat race for the same speed.
And riders of your size, it seems like this is becoming a new norm, like in the World Tour in particular, with teams like Uno X. Filippo Ganna's kind of gone in the opposite direction as he's gone from being a large muscular track rider to now almost like being a GC rider. And it's a new era in cycling. And as you said, this type of terrain is very ideally suited to someone with your characteristics. What your size is not particularly well suited to is sitting on an airplane for 17 hours. What do you do when you're on a flight like that, particularly when you're headed to a race? Are you flying coach, business class, and like what do you actually do during the 17 hours?
Definitely just get the cheapest ticket possible. I'm pretty good at trying to get myself upgrades. I remember on the way home from the States last year, I was I managed to talk the check-in person into upgrading me to. I was like, oh, I've got kind of a sore leg. Like, do you have anything towards the front of the block? And he was like, oh, I'll see what I can do. Just like told him a good story of how because I had to have the whole 24 hours beforehand in the airport. Actually, on the way home from the States last year, I had to spend all of Christmas Day in Houston Airport. Because that time of year was so expensive to fly. So the cheapest one was on Christmas Day. And got there, got to my check-in terminal, had 24 hours to wait. And that night, because I had two bikes with me, two bike boxes, and I stole some big luggage trolley from the terminal over, and I got some awesome, like, I don't know, fleece blanket thing in a secret Santa the day before, and build this little fort sort of in the corner. So I had four walls, like a roof, made myself a little entranceway, hung my stocking up in front of the thing, and spent the night in the airport sleeping in this little fort. So that made the time go by. When the security guard came along, he was like, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Can't do what?" Like, he didn't know what to say. I'm like, "This is just my luggage, bro." So yeah, that was entertaining. And then managed to score myself an upgrade on the way home, just telling them the story of showing the photo of the fort I'd made in the airport. That was good times, and had a bit more leg room. But I actually do have relatively short legs for my height. Like, a lot of people get on my bike and are pretty surprised at how low the seat is. So I guess having more torso probably makes me a bit heavier, but also makes me more aerodynamic. Your legs aren't as long. Which is the big thing in a race like Unbound, which is 9 hours at 37 k's an hour. aero matters there.
Not that arrow on a 17-hour flight though. So
No,
are you getting up frequently and walking around? Are you the guy who's like going to the bulkhead and stretching for 5 minutes, or are you like
yeah, do definitely
messing out
get
with
up.
the subway? Like, what do you do?
I don't know, I don't really get fairly busy like when I'm not flying. Don't spend much time watching movies, so probably watch more movies on planes than I have any other place. Yeah, definitely do like to get up and go for a walk and suck the leg up on one of the bulkheads and stretch the hamstrings out or something. Yeah, but yeah, so the long haul's not quite what it is to Europe, but like 13-hour legs and then the domestic flight as well. Don't like flying, but you got to do it.
Had your parents seen you do any of the lifetime races before this year? Did they come over last year?
No, they hadn't actually. So this is the first big grill race they'd been to, and yeah, they chose a good one to attend. Yeah, they'd come to Europe with me. Actually in the States when I was doing XCO, so they've been and watched like snowshoe and Montserrat mountain bike World Cups. But yeah, this gravel racing is like such a cool atmosphere. Having the big expo beforehand, and maybe not quite as many people yelling on the side of the track because it's not the most spectator friendly course, a 200-mile loop. But yeah, they really enjoyed the atmosphere around it and all the hype. And yeah, they were able to help out in the feed zones and definitely feel like they were amongst it.
What did they think about Emporia?
I think Dad met like the county sheriff and had a good yarn with him. And apparently, my dad's got an offer to stay in the sheriff's basement next year.
That's great because I was
just
reading about how it's $5,000 to stay in Emporia for 3 days now. Like there's so much demand for places to stay. People are staying in Topeka now.
There's huge demand, and you got to get onto the accommodation booking quite early. Last year when we went, we stayed in the college dorms, which was actually a pretty good setup, but you had to like reserve that back in December. And this year I had a space in the dorms, and also my parents had a place with some of the other New Zealand riders, but I was looked after by Shimano this year, and they'd like every year they book out this big sort of Airbnb, but it's literally a mansion, the Gaffler mansion. So I turned up and there's like big pillars out the front, and I was the first from the Shimano crew to arrive on the Monday night, and the side door was open so I could get in, but it's just like this really old mansion with like 15 bedrooms, and like all the bedrooms is like a different country theme. But like walking into that place with this big like creaky staircase, and like yeah, it was definitely haunted. It was like something's going to jump out at me walking into that accommodation when I was the first person to arrive.
And what was your time in the dorm like last year? I stayed in the dorm in 2015. I don't remember if we talked about this on Beyond the Peloton. You're very close to the train tracks that run through town when you're in the dorm. I heard the train many times that night.
Yeah, it was crazy this year. That first night I had, you just hear the train horn going all night. I don't know what was going on.
It's like it's going back and forth. Like it's just constantly there blowing its horn.
I'm sure the local residents just get used to it and sleep through it. Dorms was all right. I guess it wasn't, sort of kind of hard mattresses, didn't have sheets or air conditioning, so it wasn't the greatest sleep we had there. But you need to sleep that well the night before those races anyway. It's such an early get up, and your head's always so busy, just questioning if you've got everything ready and nervous about what's ahead.
Did your parents, now that they've seen you win Unbound, do they just have an expectation this is how it's going to be every time?
No, I don't think so. I don't have too many expectations or pressure on me. Just stoked to see me enjoying it. Before I dropped them off yesterday, Dad was like, "Oh, do you need any help at Big or Little Sugar?" He's just looking for an excuse to come over and watch it again. So yeah, they loved it.
What was your family like growing up?
Yeah, always pretty active. Like got outdoors and did lots of hiking as kids, and Dad had done some bike racing, multi-sport racing in the past. So yeah, definitely, whether it was them or just like family friends that they'd met through the sport, got me out and into the mountain biking scene. So yeah, I guess most of the holidays were skiing or hiking or doing some sort of outdoor activities. Um, I don't think we were a like super competitive family, but grew up doing soccer and cricket and all the team sports. And yeah, they were pretty stoked when I stopped playing cricket because that sort of writes off a whole Saturday and started doing individual sports where you can kind of train when you want, not having to get driven to games or practices every day. Um, yeah, just always in the outdoors and uh, yeah, plenty of holidays around the country. That sort of got me into loving the traveling and seeing new places. There's still so much to explore in New Zealand, even such a small country. But yeah, enjoying being able to travel the world with the sport.
When you were a kid, what did you think you were going to do when you grew up?
Like I said before, I'd never really planned more than a week in advance anyway. So yeah, I didn't know. I think I always thought I'd like, do high school, go to university. That was always the pathway I thought I'd do, and that's what I have done. Um, don't think I thought I'd be doing the sport full time, like as a job. It's always been a dream. Like, oh, it'd be cool to just be able to ride for a job or do some fun sport full time. But I never really, there was never something I pursued. I just um, did the sport for the travel and for the competition of it. Just something to do. So it was only really this last year that it's sort of sunk in that I can do this full time and actually now probably actually put some money away from it.
Not everybody knows that Unbound's probably the second or third biggest race that you've won. I have to think that winning the multi-sport race across New Zealand, that has to be your biggest achievement.
Yeah, that was sort of my first big breakthrough. There's um, big sport in New Zealand's multi-sport, which is like running, biking, and kayaking. All in no course is the same. It's not a standard distance. Some of the events like adventure racing also include navigational aspect. But New Zealand's got a race called the Coast to Coast, which is considered the multi-sport world championships. There's the single day event and the 2 day event, both over the same course. I wasn't old enough to do the 1 day, but spent all my the summer before I turned 16 racing, training for the 2 day event, and ended up winning it, which was sort of first time I got on national TV. That was a pretty cool moment, and yeah, being the youngest ever winner of that race was sort of my first breakthrough result. It was my first time like, following a training plan, and yeah, I guess it showed me what's possible when you do train those big hours, more than I ever had before. The race course for that, it's a 30 kilometer like, mountain run, like barely on trail, just up a riverbed, climbing over boulders and stuff, and a 70 kilometer like whitewater paddle down a river, and then it starts, and between the run and the paddle, and at the end is a road cycling legs. So there's like 150 k's of cycling linking the run and the bike. So the total race time's like 12 hours, I think it was, and you end up crossing the width of New Zealand from the west to the east coast.
Do you miss multi-sport racing?
Yeah, I do a bit. It's a race I'll definitely go back to have a go at the 1 day event some year. Actually, the summer just gone, I raced that event in a team, so I only did the cycling legs, and just such a cool atmosphere around it. Just the multi-sport community back home's a great bunch of people, and it was fun doing it in a team. So while my teammates were doing the run or the paddle, there's always so many people to catch up with. Um, I actually had to do a 3K run. Like it starts on the beach and you run to your bikes, and we decided it was going to be easier for me to do that than our kayaker doing that. Our runner couldn't do it because the logistics mean he had to already be at the start of the long run. But that was fun to, after a full summer of purely bike training, to turn up and do a 3 kilometer like time trial run. I decided my best bet would be to do no training, because if I'd done a little bit of training, I just would have been sore for it. So went in fully untrained for the running, but actually managed to put in a good time, and the legs are a bit more sore a couple of days later than they might have been had I trained, but got the job done.
When you won the 2-day multi-sport championship, how big were your hours leading into the event?
Probably 18-hour weeks, and that was across running, biking, and kayaking. So I'm sure if I was doing it these days, it'd be easy 30 hours. But for a 16-year-old, that was quite a lot. And fitting that in around a bit of summer work and some family holidays, and getting some trips down to practice on the course, because knowing the lines is pretty important for that event.
When you won the event, how did it feel, and did it give you any desire to keep going and maybe to do endurance sports professionally?
Yeah, I remember the sit down and talk with my coach after that race, having a think about what's next, and we're like, yeah, we could keep focusing on this and probably have won the 1-day event, which is like the premium, like pro elite category. Could have won that by now, but I thought, like, if I did that and then got to the top of the game in multi-sport, which is a relatively small sport internationally, I would always be wondering how I could have gone in maybe a more internationally recognized sport, like the mountain biking, which I was doing a bit of at the time. So I decided then to put the multi-sport aside and train up for the mountain bike nationals, which is a few weeks away, and try and get into the team for the world champs in my under 19 junior years. And yeah, well, that's the XC mountain biking. I'd never quite got to that, I guess, Olympic level. I don't know if there's still a chance maybe, but yeah, I'm very glad I did it, because I would have always been wondering how I could have gone had I not pursued that.
When you're doing these, I guess they're not ultra distance efforts now, that ultra distance is Lachlan Morton riding around the circumference of Australia. I mean, you have to be fully active for 5+ weeks for it to be an ultra distance race now. I'm only partially kidding. But when you did the 2-day championship when you were a kid, and for a race like Unbound, what's your self-talk like, or what's going on inside your head now? Like, what was it like at Unbound, and what was it like when you were 15?
So like each of the days at Coast to Coast were like 6 hours, and that when I was 16, that was a big day. Like, that's something you pace, and I think on the pedal I was having some like almost like protein kind of nutrition, just because on longer days you want to keep the sort of muscles repaired. But now 6 hours is like a pretty average training day. I was averaging 4.5 hours a day for a few weeks leading into Unbound, and then now like a 9 hour. It's definitely a long day, but it's certainly a distance that you can race at a high intensity and be putting in attacks and be really on it all day. It's not like it's not like a fat fueling kind of race where you can't take enough carbohydrates and you have to have heaps of like real food to get through. So yeah, I guess how you race it's relative to the training you've done, and doing so much before Unbound made an effort like 8 hours not that crazy, but it certainly was when I was a kid.
What race have you done in the last 2 years where it just went completely sideways and it was not happening the way you wanted it to happen, and it was perhaps a bit of a struggle to get through? Have you had any races like that?
Yeah, there's never really been that many that I've like been completely devastated with. So like I've never really had that much pressure on myself. Like, it's always just been the adventure of getting there and seeing what happened, and I guess never doing it professionally. There's no one that's like saying, "Oh, we need you to do this result." Like, this is your expectations. Yeah, I haven't had that many like perfect races, which I think has actually been in my favor. Like, not being able to fully show what I can do on this American scene probably made it possible for me to do what I did at Unbound. Like, had I had a great race and had a podium before, I might not have been allowed to get away so easily at Unbound. So looking back, I think it's almost a blessing that I've had little things go wrong in all my races here so far, because it allowed me to pull off what I did at the biggest race in the world on the gravel. Last year at Unbound was a relatively clean race, but by far from perfect. I had like 2 crashes, had a good hour without any water in the middle sector, just not knowing how hot or thirsty it'd be. And what else? I had a couple of like times I had to stop and gas my tyre. And so for all of that to happen, it'd be a relatively clean race. So it shows um, how gnarly that race is. I did the marathon mountain bike world champs in Snowshoe, West Virginia last year. Had a crash early. I like broke my seat post, so like my dropper was sort of spinning around. Broke my Garmin mount off, sort of cut my leg a bit. Then further down the road, I got a flat tire. Had to like plug and gas that. And then I got another one. And when I was taking the CO2 off that, I like snapped the valve core off. Didn't have a spare, so I had to ride like 40 minutes on my tire insert, and then did a wheel change. And I was like in that aero bar mode. I spent a lot of time in Unbound, like with the elbows on the handlebars, and just hit a hidden puddle and just went for a big belly slide over the road. So that was one of my more unfortunate races. But yeah, I was still like 40th or something out of probably 100 riders there. That was a good race. Um, yeah, had my fair share of bad luck, but as I said, it's probably made it possible to do what I did at Unbound.
Yeah. When this race, Marathon World Championships, as you said, your dropper post breaks, it's spinning around. You have all of these different mechanicals during the race. Some people that would throw them off their game. How do you react when moments like that happen during competition?
A race like that, you've got to get yourself out of there somehow. You're in the middle of the West Virginian bush. So there's not that much choice. I guess when I did get to the A station and was already, I don't know, I lost 15 minutes probably from various things. But I was still probably in the top half of the field. So you just kind of got to be grateful that you're in that position and that there's a lot of people behind you that would have loved to be in that position, even though it's not quite what you hope for. Yeah, just got to get on with it. And I think coming from the multi-sport adventure racing background teaches you to be resourceful. You don't have a team car following you. And you actually saw that at Unbound. Some of historically the guys that come over from the World Tour with 3 more watts than everyone else haven't had a great run at it because I don't know why, but just being able to fix their own mechanicals is probably a big part of it.
What kind of jobs did you have when you were a kid?
I washed dishes when I was training for the Coast to Coast back in high school. Did a summer just like renting out mountain bikes, like a bike rental company. And then when I went to college and started my studies, that was in forestry. So I had a couple of summers measuring pine trees, and then another couple of summers also in the forestry industry, doing a few more sort of office jobs, just being an intern, really, like putting out signs and doing some forest inventory jobs, quality control of the pruning and the thinning. So those forestry jobs. The first 2 summers were like fully outside, so that was actually quite challenging to train around. You're starting at 6 a.m. and 8 hours of hiking up and down super steep hills, and then to go and then get the bike and do hours on the bike was pretty tough. And then the next couple of years, it was like 50-50 in and out of the office. But even those days out of the office, I remember walking around the hills, like you're doing your survival assessments on the pine trees, and spent most of the time listening to podcasts about this American scene. That's sort of what first put me on to the racing over here. And it was hearing how people were able to make a living out of it. Definitely motivated me to then, when I got home, to train even harder and try and make it happen for myself. Not that I didn't enjoy the job, but I'd definitely prefer not getting up at 6 a.m. and being able to just ride all day. So yeah, I guess having a hard job like that was even extra incentive to train and make this happen so I could ride full time.
I've been waiting 118 episodes to finally get somebody on this show who knows about pine trees. I have a pine forest out in my yard, and I would love your assessment, Cam. This is something I didn't know when I moved here. You look at these pine trees, you think these trees, they've got to have deep roots. It's got to be rock solid. We have a lot of pretty serious windstorms where I live. And what I've discovered, there's a field that was clear cut and they logged and got rid of a lot of pine trees. And then what remains, what seems to happen is they're like toothpicks. They just fall over anytime there's a heavy wind. So I had probably 5 full-size mature pine trees fall over this winter. And then when they did, what I realized is these roots are maybe 3 feet deep. It's not really what I expected. And then it's probably more than listeners want to know, but as I started to look into this, my hypothesis was there must be an interdependency among the trees in the forest. And when you start thinning them out, they must be more prone to falling over because they're less protected against the wind, is my guess. Am I wrong?
Yeah, were you saying that there were trees around the outside that got removed?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when growing up, I guess the stimulus of like wind blowing on like the outer trees that do take all the wind means they grow roots to the windward side, to the windward side, which makes them more resistant to getting blown over. But then all the other ones in the middle, like they've grown up soft, and so they're not used to the big wide world, and the outer ones that are more resistant to wind get taken out. So yeah, you certainly see that, and that's part of sort of harvesting plans in the commercial forestry. You try and not leave exposed trees that had grown up not exposed to the winds. So yeah, don't know what you can do about
No, I don't think I can do anything. I think they're going to keep falling over, and I just have to be careful about, like my mower is in a shed out there for the winter. I relocated the shed because just based on where trees had fallen, I was like, this is going to get crushed. Sure enough, the exact spot where I'd had it stored, giant tree fell over. I felt really vindicated that I moved it on Christmas Eve, actually. It was a really exciting moment. I had some friends help me. It paid off, though. Going back to, you're out there, you sound like Rocky. You're getting up at 6 a.m. You're doing forestry work. You're running up and down a mountain all day. You're going out on training rides. What are these podcasts that you're listening to about gravel? And what was your view of what this glamorous gravel lifestyle was like?
I guess what was attractive is that everyone seemed to have a different kind of schedule. It's not like everyone had to do just the World Cup circuit, and that was the only races. Everyone had such different, I guess race schedules. There's the Grand Prix recently has been like the main focus, but how many other unique events were out there? You could do some like ultra length races and still go back and do some XCO or short track or road, and it's not it's not just results in the Grand Prix that people care about. You can, as long as people were getting podiums and getting good media and stuff about it, then they could make a career happen. And yeah, quite like that there was so much scope for making your calendar what you want it to be.
And now that you've won the Super Bowl of gravel, I mean, this is as big as it gets. This is something that, as you noted, sometimes we have active World Tour pros at the highest level, like Mate Mohoric coming over last year. And then we, of course, have legacy legends like Greg Van Avermaet and others who are out there trying to win this event. And then you go in and you smash it and you beat everybody by a pretty substantial margin. What kind of doors has this opened up? And I know we're not that far out from the win. But what's changed for you so far, and what new possibilities are on the horizon for you?
I haven't really felt any change yet. Like I guess it was straight on the road, sort of doing a road trip, continuing with the race calendar that I had planned so far in advance. It definitely makes me a lot more relaxed about the future. Um, yeah, finding sponsors and making this kind of career sustainable is going to be a lot easier now. Yeah, I haven't really thought too much about the future, but everyone I've been like speaking with an agent who's helping me out, and like current sponsors are always like, "What do you want your future to look like?" So I guess I've still got full control over what I want to do. If I wanted to do some mountain bike World Cups or go and race on the road in Belgium or anything, as long as, yeah, as I said, you're making a cool story out of it, then no, everyone's up for me doing anything I want, which is, yeah, a really cool thing about this scene.
Leading up to Unbound this year, how many podcasts had you been on in your entire life?
One we did actually at Whiskey Off Road. My Kiwi buddy Matthew and I went on the Grodio podcast after our results at Sea Otter, and yeah, I've been on number 4 now after Unbound. There's another dozen in the inbox I need to get around to replying to. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And I know we talked when we had you on Beyond the Peloton, and I've said this in other spaces since then. I think you're going to the world tour. You got Uno X written all over you. Some team is going to benefit from bringing you in. And, typically these world tour teams, I mean, they're signing 14, 15-year-olds in their development programs now. And we're seeing people like Pog, Del Toro coming in the sport and being Grand Tour victory ready at 20, 21. You're a bit older. At the same time, it seems like you have the profile of the kind of rider who could really excel at the world tour level, whether that's as a diesel domestique. I don't know what your sprint's like, but potentially becoming a Jonathan Milan type of rider. It just seems like a lot of possibility. Does that, it's a more rigid lifestyle. You're going to the volcano and altitude training all the time. You are with a group of people who potentially could be fun. Does that appeal to you at all? Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, I'm certainly curious how I would go on the road. I think I'd be more of a, I guess, domestique or like just a breakaway rider that um, isn't ever really isn't likely gonna win something, and I think that's pretty fine with me. I sort of feel like I do this more for the sport of it than the results and the glory, which I guess is why if I had been in it, like more in it for the win and less in it for the fun of it, I might not have gone on such a outrageous move at Unbound. Looking back, it was technically probably a really wise thing, but a lot of people wouldn't put themselves out there so early just because, um, yeah, when you're watching on TV, the breakaways don't often make it um, on the road. So yeah, I reckon it'd be cool to be in a team and just, I don't know, be just one of the meat batteries, just chasing down the brakes, sitting on the front all day, or just going on these kind of suicide long breakaways, and sometimes they might work.
Meat battery.
Yeah, just like putting out watts all day.
All right. I've never
Yeah.
heard that one before. I'm writing that down. I like that.
I heard that in the context of the America's Cup cyclors. Did you
Right.
watch any of that? Which are just like the race weight they wanted them to be was 95 kilos, and they're doing, yeah, well over 500 watts for the 25 minutes or whatever the race was, just like powering the hydraulics of the boat. That could be a future career path if that is allowed in the rules in the next couple of America's Cup sailing cycles. Just sitting on a watt bike and powering the sails and the centerboards for these big foiling boats going 60 miles an hour across the water.
Cam, I see you going to the world tour and winning races. I don't see you being a meat battery. I think that's part of what you might do. So let's call your shot here. If you could win any world tour event. It could be a classic. It could be a stage at a grand tour. I think this is going to happen. So let's go ahead. What is the race that someday you would like to win that you think you're well suited to winning?
The race I've always been the biggest fan of is Paris-Roubaix. I was, yeah, haven't been following the whole World Tour road scene for that long, but Paris-Roubaix has always been the one that I've watched, made every effort to watch. And yeah, he's coming from off-road background, having the cobbles and a good amount of handling required. It's always appealed to me, that one. And it is quite a long day. Not quite the Unbound length, but certainly one of the longer road races out there.
What's your FTP?
Like 465 we use.
Okay. I can't do the pounds to kilos math. What would that make your watts per kilo?
It's like 5.5. So not outrageous, but the absolute number is often what matters on flatter courses.
It's often what matters on flatter courses, and you're doing Leadville, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Leadville. Most riders in the Grand Prix, they're probably in Leadville now. Like they've probably started their altitude camp. What is your approach going to look like for this race, and what are you expecting?
So racing the rest of June out here in Oregon and Washington. So, and then the next July is kind of up in the air with having to maybe go back to New Zealand to sort out a visa so I can actually remain in the States for the rest of the Grand Prix series, because at the moment it'll expire in the 2nd of October. So yeah, working on an athlete visa that will allow me to stay longer. So therefore I'll have to go home and do some paperwork back there. I, in theory, I could be back like 3 weeks out from Leadville to spend a sufficient time at altitude to become somewhat acclimated. But I know that visa stuff and immigration's never quick, so I think it's realistically going to be back here at altitude pretty close to the race. I'll probably look at trying to get an altitude tent or something when I am not at altitude myself leading up to it, because I did the Steamboat Gravel last year and spent a month beforehand in Durango, which is up at like 7,000 feet. And it was, amazing the amount of, how much easier it became after a few weeks just living up there and training up there, and then how good you felt when you came back down to sea level. So, definitely want to spend some time at altitude and get the gains there. I've never really raced much above 6,000 feet, like Steamboat was sort of around that level, but Leadville will be next level. I think there's a bit of bunch tactics there, it seems, but it is kind of a big time trial race. You can seriously blow yourself up by riding beyond yourself on the climbs. So, I'll probably just be a bit more mathematical about it, find out what the most sustainable kind of power is for me to do on the climbs and try and be disciplined to that. And then hopefully that ends me up in a group on the flat that I can roll with.
While we have you here, let's unlock a mystery for people out there who are doing some of these gravel events. So you mentioned Steamboat. I was there last year. I don't remember what the name of the course I did was. I think it was 60 miles, maybe 55. I don't know if they had this in your race. In our race, after that initial gravel section, then there was a long road section. Then there was quite a long climb on a road up over a mountain pass. And then we went on to a gravel downhill. And the feeling I had was, I'm going to die. And there's no way any tire would be effective at providing traction on this surface. When you're on a downhill like that, what's the feeling you have? Are you actually in control, or are you just drifting and hoping for the best?
Gravel road descending is what I live for. That's my big strength, I think. And it was cool to have a result at Unbound when descending is not even part of it. So I'm actually looking forward to some gravel races where I can sort of use that as a tactic. I feel like I can drop sort of anyone on a gravel descent. And even if you're some races, that's actually not a good thing to try and drop people or get gaps on the descents. And so in that case, like in Steamboat, I used my skills to just underbike myself. So I had 40 mil slick tires on for the black course at Steamboat. Talking to Payson, who was sort of on my wheel, and he was on full 2.2 mountain bike tires, and said it was scary to watch me go down the hills. But I feel like tire setup is, and even bike setup isn't nearly as important as line choice. You can get away with any sort of setup if you're just good on the lines and good on the tire pressures. And yeah, I've got a kind of a weird comfort zone. Like on the bike, I'm like not a gap jump person. Like put me in a dirt jump park, like controlled environment, like you can check out every jump. Like that's scary to me, but I'll very willingly bomb at 60 k's an hour down a gravel road with big exposure off the side, like blind to not knowing what's coming up. So I don't know, it's just a weird thing in my head that I find that acceptable, and don't like jumps. A kind of weird kind of sense of risk. But yeah, descending on a gravel bike is a lot of fun.
So you feel in control.
Yeah, I mean, where gravel is different to road is that a little bit of drifting is okay. You can get away with it. Like if your tires start skidding on the road, you're done for. But on the mountain bike especially, you try and control the drift rather than avoid it, and gravel's kind of the same. But yeah, it's like using the camber of the road, and if you're drifting along like an off camber bit, that's not good news. But if you're sort of drifting in a wheel track when you've got a little rise in the middle of the road, that's going to catch you. Yes, a little bit of drifting's all right.
That's why you're a professional gravel cyclist and not me. I will say everything changed for me. I used to be quite comfortable and really enjoyed high-speed gravel downhills. And then when I was at the peak of my confidence, I was descending along gravel descent in the Marin Headlands in the Bay Area. I still remember this because I had my iPod. This was how long ago it was. I was listening to Phil Collins, Coming in the Air Tonight. I was really feeling it. And I was going around an off-camber turn, and my wheels went out from under me, and it was quite a hard wreck. It was one of those wrecks where I was scared to look down after I stopped sliding. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to see what happened. And of course, you never feel anything for like 3 minutes. And I was okay. I didn't break anything. I lost a significant amount of skin, particularly around my knee. I don't know if you've torn up your knee. It's a very hard area to heal because it flexes. And then after that, I just wasn't the same again, Cam. And I'm not a professional, so it's okay.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't had anything too bad. And when I was 13 or something, I crashed on my road bike, just slid down some gravel, and it took a long time to get confidence back on the road bike. And I've yet to have a huge crash on the gravel bike. So yeah, I guess we'll see how I bounce back from that when it inevitably happens. I feel like on the gravel bike, you kind of know when you're going to go down. Like I know like how fast and how sharp I can corner with a control. And I feel like I'm more likely to just like ride off the edge of the road than I am to turn too sharply and slide out.
Yeah.
And so often, you end up like riding into the ditch or sort of down the bank, and then knowing it's going to happen, you get a bit of warning so you can kind of bail. But yeah, had a fair share of crashes. And I guess the good thing about mountain biking is it's kind of easy to get away with the crash. Like I'd probably crash, I don't know, 1 in 5 rides or more, but if you can get away with it. But on the road, if you crash, it's never pretty.
Yeah, let's hope there's no crashing in your future. That would be the best possible outcome, because you got to get in that altitude tent, man, and start getting ready to go to Leadville to let Keegan have it. Well, Cam, thanks so much for being here today. When you get that call to go to the world tour, I want to be your first DM. Let me know who it is. And I'm excited to see where things take you and to see you on the top step of the podium, hoisting that cobble at Paris-Roubaix, which I think is well within the realm of possibility. So thanks for being here today.
Awesome. Nice to chat.
The number one way to support Choose the Hard Way is to become a paid subscriber to my Substack. You can find that at alwaysthehardway.substack.com. Link in show notes and on my link tree on Instagram at HardwayPod. My Substack is where I share my deeper reflections on the interviews I bring you here on the Choose the Hard Way podcast. And I write about engaged mindfulness, bikes, life parenting, Maine, birds, all the good stuff. For senior executives, professional athletes, and political leaders, podcasts are not optional anymore. They're a mission critical communication channel. At One Real Voice, I coach leaders one-on-one to help them thrive as storytellers and stand out in the long form podcast conversations where real influence is built. If you have a podcast or if you're thinking about starting one, which is an even better time to reach out, I also provide strategic guidance to help you create a roadmap that works today and delivers continual value over time. Set yourself up to win, because I know you're a winner if you're listening to this podcast from the beginning, and keep on winning with every episode. When you're ready to be great, DM me at HardwayPod on Instagram or email hello@onerealvoice.com. Those links are in the show notes. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, please subscribe and hit 5 stars. It helps more people find the podcast. And I know that there are many of you out there who regularly listen, and I would love it if you just take a second to hit 5 stars wherever you listen. DM me at HardwayPod on Instagram and let me know what you think about this episode with Cameron. We've got a lot of awesome other interviews coming soon. Thank you, as always, to my sponsors, blockchain.com, Laugh Cycles, and Palm Tree Podco, my podcasting partner, for their support. Shout out to Anthony and the team. See you next time. And until then, why don't you call a couple of your friends on the telephone, or even better, meet them in real life, and then pick something fun and challenging to go do outside with your human bodies, because AI has not won yet. The humans are still here and have a fighting chance. Let's keep it that way. Have a good one.